desal.
And I noticed, I was looking at weather maps that showed the drought situation, and I was looking back at 2009 because I remember that's the last time that we were on water rationing, and it showed just little spots of, you know, red showing drought situation. And when I looked at the one from 2010, there was very little drought situation. When I looked at the one from this year, it was just covered, the whole state was covered in red for severe drought condition. So this isn't just something that League City is facing alone, right?
Right, correct.
So tell me, what are some of the steps that we're taking right now? I know that we have plans for the future to get more water and to look at desalination and to look at possibly using reuse, but what are we doing now? Why our drought contingency plan? Why is it written the way it is?
Drought contingency plan is actually under revision right now, and so it was written back in the 80s, and as most of the plans were mandated by TCEQ. And some of the trigger points, as the mayor was referring to, were set many, many years ago, before we had a lot of the water conveniences that we have in our houses today, and certainly irrigation systems in ground and otherwise. So a lot of those trigger points were set back without those considerations being thought of. What's being done today is we're revising our drought contingency plan to better match up with the needs of our citizens. We hope to have that, we'll have that out to council for their review and consideration, so we should have that done this month. Other things that we are doing right now is we're looking at putting in some reuse lines to transfer some of the treated effluent from our wastewater treatment plants to be used on park areas, like I said earlier. We're also working a deal with City of Pasadena. The mayor's been involved in that. I've been working on that pretty diligently to purchase an additional water supply that gives us a different route and a different feed into the city. Currently we have one feed coming into the city down Highway 3 from the city of Houston. If that supply is interrupted, then we are out of water. And so we're trying to construct and find another alternative route and another source of supply to alleviate that possibility.
Okay, so it seems like we're on track, but to me as a taxpayer, that sounds like a lot of projects that cost a lot of money. So budget is coming up. Tell me how this is going to affect my pocketbook.
Well, right now, we're not looking at any rate increases for our water. You know, we've got some of the higher rates in the area, although when compared to other cities of our size within Texas, we're kind of in the middle of the rate structure. One of the truths that has to be told out there is that water is not going to be cheap in the future for any of us, not just here, statewide it's not going to be. Right now, even with these proposed improvements, we're not looking at a rate increase.
And so, Mayor, can you tell me about, so you're telling me my taxes are not going up this year, but what about services? Am I going to expect the same level of service?
One of the things that we've done through our Assistant City Manager for Finance, Mike Lofton, is one of the things that has been done over the previous years. We've had a lot of bond issues that have been done over many years, but they haven't been managed very well. We didn't know what we had out there in bonds. One of the things that's unique to League City right now is we've had a lot of bond issues in the past, but we were already shrinking down on our outstanding debt. So we were in a position. It's kind of like when you buy a new car, you pretty much paid off the existing car, and you were just driving it now. Trying to spread that prevents you from having to go out and get that new monthly payment, so to speak. But that monthly payment has already been in the city's budget all along. So now we're able to go in there and put a bunch of these improvements that haven't been out there to new bond debt. We stretched out the debt over the next 20 to 25 years. A couple of the major improvements, like the water line from Pasadena and a possible additional water line from the city of Houston down Highway 3, are substantial cost. You're talking, the feed from Pasadena, between that line and then another line to get over to the South Shore area, you're looking at about $20 to $23 million roughly. So that's, while $23 million is a lot of money in our overall bonded indebted, now that we're able to take on that new debt because we basically paid off a lot of the old debt, it's not going to affect the everyday taxpayers. Now, if we have to go out there and build a new water line from all the way from South Houston to here, those costs are anywhere from $45 to $50 million. Now, that's a big cost. We're looking at maybe on something like that, doing a bond issue or bond retirement of 30 to 35 years, because that's a lifetime, or that's going to be there forever, not just a short thing that in 10 years the line's going to be no good. But one of the things that Rich talked about, we dump about 6 million gallons of clean water out into Clear Creek daily from our Dallas salmon plant, and we only recover about 700,000 to 800,000 gallons a day. When that plant was put in back in the 80s, and when South Shore Country Club was put in there, they had a lot of demand for water. There wasn't, at that time in the 80s, even in the 90s and in the 2000s, the water wasn't an issue, or at least it wasn't an issue for League City, because we hadn't got into our population growth. We went from 43,000 10 years ago to double that, 84,000. So you can just imagine. But in those 10 years, we haven't increased our available water. So South Shore made that deal. We've got a reuse line that goes all the way over to South Shore Harbor, and that's water that can be used for irrigation purposes. It can't be used for drinking. But just for instance, a few weeks back when we went through that period where we had mandatory bans on all outside watering, we went from 17 million gallons a day to a little over 8. So that tells me that almost 50% of our usable water supply is going to water people's yards, and that's drinking water. And we should not be using drinking water, because it's such a valuable quantity on irrigation, especially when you factor the fact that we're dumping 5 million gallons of clean, usable water out into Clear Creek every day that could be used without a lot of infrastructure on reuse. Like Rich said, when we expanded our Dallas plant, we put gray water trunk lines in down through renovation of Coriel, so we can hook up to those gray water lines and try to get that water we're dumping. While there is a cost to treat it, it's water that we were just talking about 10 million gallons that we're going to get from City of Houston, and it's going to cost us $23 million roughly to get that water to us, when we're dumping 5 million gallons of usable water that could be used. Again, when you say 50% of our water use is on reuse, 5 million gallons or 4 million gallons of reused water that we could access just by going in there and putting additional gray water lines in.
That would be for like large water users, not for residential, right?
Well, at this point in the game, yes, but we have two major growth areas of the city, one being out by Marbella. There's about 4,500 acres over there, and our big expansion, if we do have this in the future, is our west side. You got like 9,000 acres. We're currently building a new wastewater plant over there, and it's reclamation facility, so it's geared towards reclaiming that water. So as we put in trunk lines, sewer lines to that, we're also dropping reuse lines in there as well. And whenever those houses come, because we're in a prime situation that we can dictate, or when these developers come in to do that master plan over there, we can say we're going to require you to use that reuse for your amenity lakes. And I would say it's a more than a possibility that those houses will have a secondary gray water line for irrigating their lawns. Because if any water we can reuse doesn't count against us, and we don't have to buy it from a secondary source.
Okay, well that's that sounds like good news, especially for all of those who want to water their lawns. I know that's been a touchy topic lately. But besides the water issues and besides all these great water projects we have planned, what are some of the other things we can look forward to in next year's budget?
Road improvements.
Road improvements, a lot of those.
Yeah, why don't you talk about some of the road improvements?
Man, we've got Kansas Avenue is one that's up for being done in this coming year. Houston Avenue obviously is under construction right now with some major improvements there and stormwater improvements as well. We also have Texas Avenue that is slated to be going to design shortly. Louisiana Avenue is a county project that we're participating in. That is scheduled to start construction this month or early October, which will be a major improvement to our city, making another north-south connector between 96 and FM 518. So lots of major roadway improvements. There's going to be obviously some traffic issues when we start those construction projects. But I just would like to remind everybody that that's just going to be temporary. Once we get through all the construction, mobility around town is going to be greatly improved.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing with us about the budget, about water, and also about the direction you're leading League City. Now, you can find information about all these topics on our website at leaguecity.com. Don't forget you can also follow us on Facebook and also on Twitter to get information on all these topics and many, many more. That's at leaguecity.com. And thank you again for joining us for Leading League City.